style session. Tonight we're looking at winter beers, which is a style that really is not a style because it's all-encompassing. You can find just about every style of beer there is, and some breweries probably doing it as a Christmas or winter beer. So actually, we wanted to talk about a little bit of the background of Christmas and winter beers. American beer geeks tend to think that everything started here. That's not the case with most styles. We've done a pretty good job, our craft brewing industry, in expanding a lot of styles and making them all our own. But as far as the tradition of brewing Christmas beers, really that started with the English tradition of Christmas ale and the German tradition of Weihnachts beer. The Dutch and the Belgians have a history of it too, but it probably goes back the furthest in Germany and in England. The English Christmas ales would just be either a winter warmer, which is probably the most common, a slightly stronger than normal English ale, not really, sometimes they're called barley wines, but not as strong as American barley wine by any means. But you could have standard ales, extra special bitters, things like that as Christmas ale as well. The Germans, their tradition is more of Weihnachts Bock. The Germans have a habit of brewing Bocks in the wintertime. It's a stronger beer, and the extra alcohol is a little fortifying in the cold weather and sustaining as well. They have a Starkbierfest in January or February, and again they feature winter Bocks then, but they do have a special Christmas Bocks all their own. So American brewers have kind of taken on that tradition, which is a good thing. And of course, the first one to do that really was Anchor in modern history. If you go back through history, American brewers did do Christmas beers. Ballantine of New Jersey did they did a special Christmas beer, Ballantine Burton Ale, that they actually didn't sell to the public, but they gave it out to some of their best distributors. And it looks like Red has been able to join our call, so welcome, Red.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good.
All right. So we were just touching on the history of Christmas ales and German Weihnachts beer. Anchor, though, is really the first one that started brewing Christmas beer and got the very vibrant craft beer tradition of Christmas beers going. If you think about it, they've been doing it for 40 years now. Actually, this year's release of Anchor, our special ale, is their 40th, and they've been doing this since 1975. They kind of incorporated the English wassail tradition, which is another winter drink, which is usually a spiced cider, but it could be a spiced ale as well. And they added spices to Anchor, our special ale, just to make it an American. Really an American sensation that's caught on. Sierra Nevada picked up. They did Celebration, which is an IPA. They've been doing that since the 80s, I believe. Harpoon came on board with a Winter Warmer, which was another spiced one. And these days, just about every brewer you can think of that's worth their salt has some form of Christmas or winter beer. It's very popular. The public has really taken up on those, and it's good for the brewer and good for the public. So what we're going to do is the same thing that we did in our pumpkin ale review, and that's we've gone over a little bit of history of the style. As I said, it's the style that's not a style because there's just so many different types of beer brewed as a winter seasonal. And then we've got our guest reviewers, or really our panel here, and I'll pass the hat around one by one for them to talk about their impressions of the style and the beers that they're drinking tonight in that style. And so I, of course, have, since I mentioned Anchor, I've got I'm actually drinking the 2014, and this is I haven't missed our special ale. 91 was the first one that I had. First year I was able to find it, and I've bought this, been able to find this beer every year since. Had it on draft at Taco Mac and various places, and in the bottle. It always changes up a little bit. Not sure there's a huge difference from year to year, but they do change the beer up slightly. I've got from my beer fridge, I've got a bottle of the 2013. I like to hang on to these because I think they age. They don't really improve so much with age, but it's interesting to compare to year. And kept in my beer fridge, they're usually, they hold up pretty well. You can see they change the label each year too, and they feature a different tree every year. And it's just Anchor. The beer's got a little bit more expensive over the years, but I think I paid $10.99 for it this year, or maybe $11.99. But it's something that I wouldn't do without. You can see I've got this is an our special ale glass that I got at Taco Mac one year, and it's just I think to me it's still one of the best. It's just got that really big maltiness to it, some gingerbread, different spices to it, very piney. I think they've actually used spruce in the past, but it's just a fantastic beer, and really set the stage. Before I pass the hat, I've also got this is actually a bottle of Hope Christmas Ale, and this was one of the very first Christmas beers that I ever had back in, I want to say 88 or 89. This isn't the first label that Hope used, but this was before the onslaught of Christmas ales really started in the 90s and so on. But I happened to get a bottle. I can still remember this day, sitting at Koenig City and Davall Square in Providence, Rhode Island, and getting a bottle of Hope Christmas Ale. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. And at the time, I think it was maybe the third Christmas beer that I had ever had. The first one being, of course, Sam Smith's Winter Welcome. Is a very famous English Christmas beer, and then from Würzburger they had a Würzburger Weihnachts beer, which was a double bock, and really I just since then I always go out of my way to find Christmas beers. This is a little piece of my former 1,500 bottle collection. This was one of the ones that I wouldn't part with. So that's just a little trip down memory lane for me. But I think these types of beers are very important to the beer world, and I'm glad we have them. And I think with that, I will pass it on to Tom.
Hold on just a second, John. I'm having technical difficulties.
Tom's having technical difficulties.
I don't have the...
Okay, now I'm back.
All right, Tom.
Sorry about that, people. If I can find me. There we are. I'm back. I'm bad.
All right, let it roll, Tom.
Okay, well, I went local like I like to do. My White River Old Mill Ale, from the bottle it just says, this dark winter warmer has a luscious, rich malt complexity from start to finish. Their website tells you a little more about it, and I'm not going to read from the website because, I figure everybody watching this is smart enough to pull up a website. But I will tell you that they say it uses, they call it an old ale style, and it's intended to be an old British beer. Basically, it uses Maris Otter malt, 2 yeast strains, and I can't remember the hops at the moment, but it does use British hops as well. It is intended to be an old English ale. It is 7.5%. And I went with this one for 2 reasons. One, well, it's local. I like to go local. And 2, this isn't a spiced ale. It is just, and again, it's just basically an old ale. If you can see that there, it's got a nice kind of brown to it. The nose is slightly sweet with a little bit with a brown sugar tinge. The flavors is what they explain to you. I mean, it is rich, it's luscious, it's a little sweet. There is some complexity, but it does dry out at the end more than you'd expect a beer like this to. And the glass I'm using is important because we learned a lesson from John the other day that the best beer glass to use is what, John? the beer, the glass with the brewery's logo on it.
There you go.
That's the lesson John taught us. So, but anyway, that's why I picked this one because it was just a winter warmer and not a spiced ale, and that it's local. And from there, I'll pass the buck.
All right, thanks, Tom. That sounds like a good one, actually. So next on my screen here is Dale. Dale, take it away.
All right. Well, tonight I grabbed a Old Jubilation Ale from Avery, and just like Tom's, it's not spiced. It's an Old English Ale, 8.3%, 45 IBUs, brewed with 5 malts, and it's just, you know, they're big. But Avery's known for big beers to begin with, and but it's definitely, I mean, it's a beer that I would drink often. I usually just try to buy as many Christmas beers, winter beers, because, you know, starting with the pumpkin beers and moving in, it's my favorite type of season. I just love the big hearties, even though I'm an IPA guy at heart. And you know, Boulder beer, Boulder, Colorado's oldest brewery, just introduced Slope Style Winter IPA. It's a red IPA, and it's amazing. So, you know, there's just so many good beers out there, and if this one just comes in, it's just so smooth. You don't get the 8.3%. It just goes down. My history with the winter style, actually, you know, the early '90s. I used to wait. You know, I didn't drink Coors at all. Being from Colorado, I just couldn't stand it. But when they put out their Winterfest every year, I'd grab the 6-pack of Winterfest. It was a great beer. And you know, and then I'd also Sam Adams, the Cherry Lambics, some of the other ones that they would put out in the '90s, and that was kind of where I started. And then as it moves into the bigger craft season, you know, this craft explosion. I mean, like you said, everybody's got one, and I know that last year I sent everybody, you know, my favorite brewery's version, and from Upslope, and you know, it's top notch too. So it's just great that there's an open palette, but yet they all kind of, you know, do something a little special. So.
All right. Yeah, well said. And actually, the Winterfest, interesting that you said that, because I remember that beer distinctly, drinking it quite frequently in the '90s. And at the time I worked at a liquor store, and we used to sell a lot of it. I've always wondered what happened to it and why they stopped it. But
I just read that it's coming back this year. So
it is this year.
And they're brewing it in their little AC Golden brewery, which is their small one-off, and most of the time none of that gets out of Colorado. So
be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, we shall see.
All right, Dave. Dave, you're up next.
Outstanding. Tonight I've got a local beer here. I got the Great Lakes Brewing Company Christmas Ale. Now the thing about this beer, gentlemen, is that the recipe has changed slightly each and every year. And I just opened it a few minutes ago, and I had a couple of sips of it, and I think it's quite lovely this year. Now, the one thing that Great Lakes does that I really like is they always put a best before date on its bottles, and they're saying that this beer is good for 120 days. I just picked this up at the brewery yesterday. This was brewed yesterday. You're not going to get it any fresher than that, my friends. So I've got this lovely Great Lakes beer glass here on both sides. That's the logo for it. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Nice.
But, yeah, it's really good. Now, this poured out about 1 finger of a beige color head when I first poured it. You can see it's leaving some nice lacing. It's got good carbonation. The thing I like about this beer this year is it's nowhere near as sweet as it was last year. It just had, from my opinion, just had a little too much honey in it. Did I send you one of those last year, John or Dale? I think I sent a couple of those out last year. No?
Not
You guys,
like,
I did.
okay, I'll send one out this year. I got your boxes out in the hallway there. I'll put one in there. But this year, I think is pretty darn good. Yeah, you definitely get the cinnamon and ginger. That's very apparent right up front. It has a slightly sweet finish on it. There's a lot of caramel malts in here. It's spiced, but it's not overly spiced. And that's one thing I look for in Christmas beers, because you know, who really wants to drink something that's full of ginger and cinnamon and clove? I mean, it's okay, but it's not for me. You know, it's just when you start to get that cloying effect and you're just like all over your lips, it's not good for me. You know. And I don't know if I said, but this is 7.5% with 30 IBUs. So I think it's very well balanced. It's a well balanced beer this year, and I think Great Lakes has hit the nail on the head. Now, just for a matter of discussion here, I don't know how many people know this. I think Scott probably knows this, but the original brewer that worked at Great Lakes is now at Thirsty Dog, and he kind of took the Christmas ale recipe with him. So I know I sent you 12 Dogs at Christmas in July, Dale. What did you think about? What did you think about that beer? You remember?
It was an amazing beer.
That's the original recipe for this beer right here. I'll send one to everybody. Scott, though, you can get that, so I'm not going to send you one, but I'm going to send everybody else one so they can try it. So, well, that's all I really have to say about this beer. I think it's a really good beer without being overly spiced. So, cheerio.
All right. Good stuff, Dave. Thanks. That's a great beer. And I think next up is Red. Red, what are you drinking?
Okay, I'm from New England, as you well know, John. So I went with a New England beer, Harpoon Winter Warmer. Now, that's one that I've had since the brewery's opened. I want to say I started drinking it probably 90, 91 when they first came out. I think you remember they used to have a green label, John. You remember that?
Yep.
So, like Dave said, this one isn't really too overspiced. It's just got nutmeg and cinnamon, and it's based on a brown ale, and it's very good. I mean, you get the nice cinnamon and nutmeg in the nose. It's got a nice sweet malty body, not too cloying. Then it ends spicy, and you get that ginger and the nutmeg that lingers. So I really like that one. That was one of the first ones I ever drank. Of course, Anchor, our special ale, was another one. And like John, I like the German tradition of Christmas beers too, the Weihnachts beers. I like the strong and malty Bock beers that come out as well. We don't see a whole lot of them. That's an unfortunate thing, I think, because that's really a great beer style. So I wish more brewers would do it. But there's a fairly local brewery to me. It's in Pittsburgh. It's called Penn Brewing Company, and they do a St. Nicholas Bock beer, which is a Weihnachts beer, and it's just excellent. So if you can get that, give that one a whirl. But, you know, I like the whole wassail tradition. I like the old English tradition of, you know, starting it was mulled cider, and then they moved it to a mulled beer where they added sugar and nutmeg and ginger and cinnamon. And they would put it in a bowl, and they would heat the bowl up, and they would put toast on top of it. And people would take the toast and dip the toast into the beer and eat the toast. And that's where the term comes from. If you ever notice, like, you want somebody to toast somebody, that's out of that whole tradition. So like John said, I love the fact that this is a tradition, not a style, that there are all different types of beers that fit into this winter warmer, Christmas beer, wassail category. So, hey, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. Back to you, John.
Thanks, Red. Yeah, I agree with what you say about it's a shame we don't see more of the German-style Bocks, but for anybody that's near a Gordon Biersch, their Winterbach is an excellent example. In fact, they're tapping that here tomorrow. And the growler shop is rumblings that they may get a keg of it, and if they do, I'll be down there faster than you can say Winterbach. Anyway, that brings us to last, but certainly not least, my buddy Scott White. Scott, go ahead.
Hey, how are you guys doing this evening? It was nice that you guys have just let it out there. There are so many different styles of these beers. Well, that's what I wanted to really showcase this evening. I actually have not one, but two winter warmers. And the only reason I went with two is to show a little bit of the difference, because of the sheer fact that one of the biggest onsets with these beers is that when you look up anything that deals with Christmas ales or winter warmers, they're traditionally in like your dark amber red color. They're usually or primarily have like the cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, and maybe some clove. Most of these breweries nowadays are even putting honey in it. And one of the fine examples with honey in it that I have here is the Troggs Brewing Company, the Mad Elf. Now, this beer comes in at a whopping 11% alcohol by volume. And a little bit of information on this real quick from the actual website themselves is that they actually make this with sour cherries directly from Pennsylvania. Most of the stuff just comes in locally. It's only a seasonal. It has Pilsner malts, Munich, and a little bit of chocolate. You don't really get a lot of chocolate out of it, but then they use some Saaz and Hallertau for the hops and a spicy Belgian yeast. I've also had the opportunity to have the Korsendonk Christmas beer because we were talking about, the other countries and the German styles and whatnot. And that was a lovely, lovely beer. I absolutely loved the Korsendonk. It was a great beer. But I also brought in one of my favorites, the Sam Adams Merrymaker, only because of the fact that everybody knows how big of a Sam's fan I am, and this goes off the beaten path. I mean, as why I call it a winter warmer style, because it comes in at a 9% alcohol by volume, and yet it still brings in those Christmas and holiday spices with your cinnamon, your ginger, your nutmeg, and cloves. But then they tend to go a little like, I don't want to say it, Eastern/Middle European, because they use a lot of the East Kent Goldings and the Fuggles being a big part of the big and earthiness that you're going to get from this beer, which, and this is another reason why I like it, because it actually tastes like a gingerbread cookie, which throughout the holidays, I mean, I don't see why enough of us aren't, making gingerbread cookies or gingerbread houses anymore.
Well said.
Back to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Scott. I think we've got a good we've had a good assortment of holiday beers, and hopefully those of you that are watching this, you're getting an idea of the different types, not just the beers that we're sampling and talking about tonight, but some of the other ones that we've mentioned, the very wide array of specialty beers that are out there during the holidays. Hope that you'll try a lot of them, especially those from your local craft brewery. I like to do that. Sweetwater puts out an excellent festive ale. I've got Three Taverns, which is an upstart, pretty new brewery, but a very formidable operation with a Belgian brewer doing some great stuff. And they've got a Feast Noel, a Spice Quad that I'm going nuts trying to find. But definitely, try a lot of different ones, but support your local guys too. And I think what we'll do this time that we didn't do last time is open it up now for a little bit of free-form discussion. Everybody's had a chance to say their piece uninterrupted, and I think that's one of the really nice features of this format. But then too, it's good to have a little bit of roundtable discussion, and I think I'll open the floor for that. Anybody and everybody. Let's talk here.
Start with saying that I agree with what Scott did. I mean, that's what I did last time with the pumpkin, because I had the three different ones. And sometimes it's nice to look at how evolved the style can, even within one style, even though we're not talking about a specific style here. But all of us chose vastly different beers. It just, I thought that was interesting. To Dale, I would just like to say, you have my address. To Dave, I'd like to say, hey man, I hope you enjoyed those Four Hands brews.
Tom, that Divided Sky was lovely. I liked it.
That is one of my favorite ryes of all time. Yes, it is.
And the sweet potato beer and the one that Johnny and I shared from Crown Valley. They're all good so far, brother.
I need to get John one of those sweet potatoes. I haven't got one to him yet, so I need to get him one.
Yeah, they were all great. Thank you. Yep. Wait till you see your box, man. You'll faint when you see your box. 12 beers. 12.
See, now I owe you some because I only sent you 7, but I'll get some.
It does. You know what? I'm not that kind of a guy, because I know I'll get it back eventually. Now, certain other people who I won't mention names here. I'm not going to mention names. I send to something wrong here.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. What do you guys think about Sierra Nevada finally, after all these years, since 1981, finally calling Celebration an IPA, which we know it's always been? And that's been a Christmas tradition with Sierra Nevada, like I said, since 1981. So IPA as a Christmas beer in the American craft brewery movement has been there early on. And John and I will remember back in the early 90s, Catamount Christmas Ale.
Yeah.
They called it a red ale, but it had a little Christmas tree on the bottle, but it was super hoppy, super fresh tasting. That was just fantastic. So I like the fact that we have that whole IPA thing going back
I agree.
30 years. So this is nothing new, you know, with all these new beer geeks and like, oh, everything's super hopped. No, it's been going on for a very, very long time, and Sierra Nevada has led the way. So I drink Celebration every year. I never miss it. I always love it.
It's a fantastic beer, and you're absolutely right. Catamount Christmas Ale was probably one of the best beers that I've ever had. I mean, it was just an amazingly fruity and hoppy IPA. And the other nice thing about it was that in July they would sell off whatever they had left for $6 a case, which was. And the stuff was still amazingly good then too. It wouldn't last very long. I'd buy it and drink it up quickly. But
wait a minute, IPAs they're not supposed to age.
No, that's why they had to sell it for $6 a
We're
case.
going to open up that can of worms here now, are we? Are we going to talk about shaker glasses too and just make it all controversial?
But yeah, it's about time they. We've known it all these years, but it's a great beer.
I wondered if they put that on there this year. I mean, because I even saw brewer reviewers last year review it as a spiced IPA, even though it's clearly stated on their website it's not spiced, but folks call it spiced in their reviews.
Yeah, it's a fresh hop IPA. I mean,
Yeah, that's what it says on the bottle too.
Never ever been spiced.
Yeah.
But they've never labeled it an IPA until now.
I know my first experience with
Celebration.
I wasn't an IPA guy, and it threw me for a loop. And that was probably 10 years ago, and I drank it every year, but I didn't know till maybe 4 years ago that it was an IPA. And I didn't know what. Oh man, that thing's like. And then, but that's kind of when I transformed over to all I really liked was IPAs, and it just kind of my whole beer journey has been that. And now I've come full circle, and now it's like the whole palette is open. So.
Well, I love the IPAs, and I always have, but around this time of year, I really like the spice beers. I mean, some of them can be a little too much, but I like spices. I like that clove, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg. I like the spice bombs, and I like the ones that are a little less spiced. That's the good thing of this time of year is you can try so many different beers, and it's good that you can get singles because, of course, the price is going just like through the roof. So I literally bought, the other day I went on a Christmas beer run, I bought a case of singles on top of another case of other beers. So it's a good time of year for sure.
Yeah, it is. The diversity is there. I like the spice beers too. In some cases, one of my favorite holiday beers is still Sam Adams Winter Lager. Scott, you can put the check in the mail later on. That's actually, I preferred that, and it's spiced now, but in its original incarnation in the 80s, it was just a wheat bock lager with no spices. And to this day, I still
I think it was actually better then.
Yeah, that was better than as much as I like the current incarnation. I don't think it's as good. I think the spices detract from it a little, and they reformulated it so it's not quite as malty as it was in those days. But it was really neat because it came in these. It didn't come in the first few years. It didn't come in 6-pack holders. It came in cardboard boxes.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, guys? I'd like to say one more thing. If you guys can get a beer from Norway, it's called Ors Juleøl, and the Norwegians have a very long Christmas beer tradition as well. And if you can find that in your market, you'll like it. It's a very malt accented beer, but it's very round and clean. I want to say it's a lager. I'm almost 99% sure it's a lager. It's been hard to find for me the last couple of years, but if you look around, find it. It's spelled like it looks like it's ass, but it's pronounced orse.
Yeah.
It's excellent. We used to carry it, John, didn't we?
90s. Actually, Jeff used to carry it at Max Liquors in the 80s, and I used to buy it from time to time, but I haven't seen that in ages. But you're right, that is an excellent beer.
Excellent. All right.
All right. Well,
cheers, y'all.
This has been fun, guys. We'll wrap it up, and I think we'll reconvene in January with another style.
Okay. Well, once again, guys, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Right.
Thanks, everybody, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas.